And unfortunately, today we've had shellings in Chernobyevka, Kherson, and Kamyshan. There is already, unfortunately, one casualty and one person injured, but we will summarize the situation by the end of the day. What can you say about the nature of these shellings? What are the targets of the Russians? Unfortunately, a large number of our medical institutions were already targeted, were already shelled. It's easier to mention the spots which did not end up under shellings rather than those that were already shelled. There are many hits in the residential areas. Today, the installation of the Ukrainian state security, Ukrainian state emergency service was targeted. Several units of material were damaged, so they tried to target Kherson and other communities, other settlements, just to inflict the most damage possible on the civil population. So it's straight terrorism. Do we have questions in the studio? Good afternoon, Irina Mamchur, Ukraine Forum. Could you please tell us if you have information about the number of children which were forcibly deported from the right bank, which is currently deoccupied without the permission of their parents? We only have part of this information. It's still incomplete, so we don't promulgate it because there are several nuances. But I want to say that the orgs, they pay a lot of attention to the issue of our kids. They were tracking the situation in the foster houses. They prohibited any evacuation of those kids. Even before their so-called referendum, they facilitated the procedure of adoption of Russian citizenship for the children, and they were about to deport all of them. However, the large fraction of them, we just managed to hide them from the orcs. I mean, those kids, so a part of those kids are still in Kherson region. Not all of the parents are deprived of the parenting rights, but the part of the children is unfortunately deported to the regions of Russian Federation. So we cannot still say any voice any exact figures. So the information is still being processed. It's being handed to the law enforcement agencies. It's 100% war crime, and we will do everything possible to get those children back, but there are still some legal nuances. Do you have any information about what's going on in the left bank, which is occupied? How do the occupiers treat the local population? What can you say about that? The filtration measures are intensified. Kakhovka and Nova Kakhovka, there are raids going on there. They look for fire correction personnel. There are more intense filtration measures implemented in Kalanchak. There are also some nuances there. Besides, there is crazy pressure on the businessmen now. From the January 1st, they restricted the circulation of hryvnia, and they track it very seriously so that hryvnia is not accepted. And they are hunting people who exchange currencies. Obviously, it was illegal, but there were people who were exchanging hryvnia for rubles, and this is how they were making living. And those were the same people who provided the services of, for example, for transferring money to the bank cards in exchange for cash. So now these people are being very intensely hunted. Thank you. And one more question, if I may. Is there information regarding the number of people left in the deoccupied territories? Are people coming back or are people leaving? And about their basic requirements, was the biggest requirement now construction materials, medicines, and so on? Thank you. Well, you actually gave an answer in your question, because really medicines is something that is in huge demand now, along with construction materials. There are a number of pharmacies working in the city of Kherson. However, the situation is way worse in the communities. Still, the amount of medicines is still insufficient, and there is no real like pharmacist chains. There is a huge amount of damage going on a daily basis, and the repair works are being in progress immediately. So we need the construction materials like immediately, promptly, but the military administration arranged the supply of the construction materials in Borislav and Kherson city, which suffered sufficient damage along with the other communities. So this issue is being worked on permanently. What can you say about the military situation in the islands in the equator of the Black Sea? Because there was a controversial information. We understand that our military are working. Well, what's the information you're hearing? Well, in fact, everything about the battle operations by our military, we have to keep silence about this, and the military keep asking about that, not to provide this information, so not to do any harm for our guys. From time to time, they really conduct some raids in the occupied territories. They perform reconnaissance and other military operations in those areas, and eventually we see the videos on the internet with our banners installed there. As soon as the territory is liberated, our military reports us about that. They know how to do war, and they will tell about their success by themselves. So let's not do any harm to their operations with regard to the occupation of those areas. But the area between left and right bank is the gray zone. Sometimes the enemy may disembark on those islands, sometimes our guys may do something over there, but it's too early to say that this territory is controlled by us. Okay, I will put my question in a different way. Can you explain to the people who never visited Kherson or in the lower current of the Dnipro, why those islands are so important? What's the military significance for them? Well, talking about the island of Veliki Potemkinsky, the distance between this island and Kherson is about 5 kilometers. From that island, the mortar fire can be conducted by the enemy, which can be used by them. So the control of that territory means indeed the decrease of the number of shellings of our civil infrastructure, of our people. But in my personal opinion, it's not a strategic direction now in terms of the occupation operations. It will be realized from a different direction for what I see from the events going on in the front lines. Yurii Sobolevskyi, first deputy of the Kherson Regional Council. Thank you for this conversation. I call all the journalists to follow our announcements. Stand with Ukraine.